All right. Hey guys, Monty here, retired lawyer, active father, and today we're going to be wrapping up this series on um, how to take care of a newborn baby, how to give your child the best possible start in life, um, and what to do after the first year of life, because I think we've covered that much ground so far. Um, the sleep training video, which was the last video, talked about sleep in the second year of life, and the video before that talked about what to feed them, beyond the first year of life. Um, but I guess in this last video, just want to offer my parting thoughts on, everything else that there is to think about in the early years of life, in the first 5 years, let's say. And in the first video in this series, I harked or alluded or referred to the state of California's First Five California campaign to teach people about the importance of these formative first years of life. And if you've watched my videos to this point, then you already know and understand that these years are important. Uh, but truly, they are. The first months and years of life are, in many ways, the most important years of life, because 80 to 90% of our brain development occurs in the first 5 years of life, according to experts today. And a child's immune system isn't fully online and developed until after the age of 5. I think the internet says around ages 7 and 8. But really, the bottom line is that these first years, whether you think of them as the first 5 years or 6 years or 4 years, doesn't matter so much. But these first 5 years, let's say, really and truly lay the foundation for a kid's health, learning, and behavior for life. They lay a foundation for those things for life. Um, and I hope if you've watched the video so far that you've been able to learn some things that are equipping you to be the best dad you can be as you prepare for the birth of your baby. The good news is that your baby doesn't really need that much to grow and thrive. And from the day I started preparing these videos and, I don't know, jotting down notes on a notepad, every single time at the top of each page, I have started things out by writing down 5 words. And I separated each of those words with like these vertical bars. And the 5 words are air, water, food, sleep, and love, because those are the 5 essential ingredients to human life, according to the human condition. It's something that I've thought about when I've reflected on things since I've become a father. I don't know where along the way I kind of coalesced in my mind, but if you think about it, that's all we really need, and that's all your baby really needs. Um, uh, I don't know, some time ago, my wife's son and I went to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, which is a very cool place. And the scientists and astronauts there were talking about what humans need for life, the basics of what we need for life. And the list that they ticked off was air, water, food, and shelter. I remember I I think my son and I raised our hands and we said sleep, and the guy was like, "Yeah, that's true, but I was thinking of shelter," is what they meant to say, and I understand the point. Although there's parts of the world, if you live in the tropics or you're near the equator, or if you're in places where it's doesn't really get that cold. There's parts of the world where people sleep outside. So, perhaps shelter isn't a bare necessity either, although for the most part it is. I guess my point is that no one disputes that sleep is essential for life. It's such an important and powerful drive that we can't help but fall asleep eventually. We can't survive without it. So that's fourth on my list. And the fifth thing on my list is love, because we humans are social creatures and we've evolved as such. And imagine a hypothetical scenario in which a baby was born into the world and there was no other human around, and even if they could somehow survive in some scenario by getting access to air, water, and food and sleep, something crucial would be lacking, and you wonder how long that child would survive, or how well they would do in isolation like that. It's like that story about leaving a baby to be raised by wolves, and he'll grow up, he'll act like a wolf, and he'll think he's a wolf. Our human babies need love. They need caring and responsible adults, mommy and daddy for sure, but also other caring and responsible adults to teach them and guide them, help them understand the world, and help them make through their way through this life. So let me start with food and sleep and hit on those briefly because we talked about them so much in this series. And then I'll finish up with love. As to food, just eat well, review the videos that I've put out to this point that talk about breastfeeding and nutrition. But just eat well and make sure your family eats well and your babies and children eat well. Give their little bodies what they need to function well and fight off disease. What should you say yes to? 5 categories of food that I touched on in the video before last, I think. Whole grains, fruits, vegetables. A 4th category of beans, seeds, nuts, and legumes. And a 5th category of fish, especially wild-caught fatty fish with high omega-3 content, like salmon, as a protein source. Honorable mentions, I would say eggs, yogurt, and milk. So that's my advice, but however you formulate your diet and that of your family, just try to eat well. Say no to empty calories. Say no to added sugars. They're putting them in everything these days, but just try to say no to added sugar as much as possible. And watch out for how much added, refined, processed sugar you and your family consume. And say no to processed foods in general. So much of the food that's out there now is processed and adulterated in ways both that we understand and that we don't quite yet understand. For example, the high level of omega-6 fats that we consume in these industrialized seed oils that they used to call and still do call vegetable oils, as if they're supposed to be healthy. But there's some emerging research, or at least a questioning of how healthy or unhealthy these fats are for us. and beyond just whether high levels of omega-6 fats that humans are not accustomed to consuming in such quantities, whether that's bad for us or not, there's another question about the processing that these seed or these industrialized oils go through to get to market and to be put on a shelf. Um, how are they extracted from the plants and the seeds to begin with? Then they are heated and reheated multiple times, which destroys the chemical bonds that hold these unsaturated fats together and make them unstable and give rise to things like free radicals. I think they're deodorized, because they smell funky, and consumers don't want their vegetable oils smelling funky. They want them to smell like nothing, and perhaps even taste like nothing, just be something that we can use to cook with. But, just ask yourself, whether our bodies understand these things as foods, and, kind of continue to scrutinize what you put in your body and what you put in your baby's body. Learn as much as you can. I'm still, to this day, I'm constantly just drilling down on stuff and trying to add to my warehouse of acquired knowledge and learn as much as I can. And the ground is sometimes shifting. And like I said, we don't understand everything yet. So, the science is still, and always, I think, perhaps we'll be trying to, refine our understanding and better understand what's safe, effective, healthy, or not. But try to make good choices. But when it comes to food, three things that you should try to keep in mind, beyond what I've said, is in approaching your kid's diet, try to be creative, try to be patient, and try to think long term. Be creative, because especially in the beginning with babies and infants and toddlers, but even with older children, sometimes a kid will eat a food when it's presented in one way and not in another way. We My kid likes bananas. I mean, he'll eat a banana just peeled and taking bites out of it, but we have fun with it. Sometimes I slice the bananas into slices, and we have these like fondue type spears or something, and we'll spear our bananas, and there's something fun about just spearing that banana. When we talk about spearing bananas, he'll end up eating more banana than he otherwise would. We know a family, and I'll just use this as an example because I thought it was a nice way of doing things, but we know a family that from the time their kid was young, when he was in his booster seat with his booster tray in front of him, they would chop up vegetables into little cubes or small pieces that a toddler or maybe younger infant could pick up by hand. All kinds of veggies, all different colors, just a colorful rainbow of veggies, and put it on his plate, on his tray in front of him, and let the kid pick and choose what he wanted to eat. And he's a baby, he's a toddler, naturally curious, can't help but try everything eventually. And to this day, he eats his vegetables because he is accustomed to doing so. He's used to it, and he's done it since he was a baby. And I thought that was really a nice, effective way of introducing those veggies into his diet. And as I said, he still eats them to this day. Be patient and think long term, because even if your baby/kid says no to something today, it doesn't mean he won't try it tomorrow. So be patient. Don't press the issue. Time is on your side, and eventually the kid will naturally adopt most of the dietary practices that you subscribe to as a family. Eventually he'll generally eat the way his mom and dad and family does. So stick with it. Don't give up on it. Put something aside if he doesn't like it, but come back to it 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, a year or two down the line. Here's another example of a time where we were able to be creative, patient, and think long term. Until recently, my kid wasn't really eating broccoli. He was eating other veggies, not all of them, but he was good with Brussels sprouts, for example, but he wasn't too keen on broccoli. I didn't even really want to try it, and we couldn't get him to try it generally. But we've prepared. We kept at it. We came back to it. We prepared it in this way that we call it crispy broccoli. It's a little bit of salt, olive oil, uh, um, garlic, and pepper in the oven, and it's crispy because we know he's liked crispy textures and crispy foods um, at other times. And now he's eating broccoli, and he likes the crispy broccoli. We call it crispy broccoli, and we make it crispy, and something that he wasn't willing to eat all the way up until recently. He's eaten now, and he's better off for it. Sleep. I would say three things to take away with you for the rest of your kids' upbringing, essentially. Respect the naps for the first 5 years of your kid's life. As long as he or she needs the naps, afford them all the naps that they need. Afford them all the ample opportunities to get the naps that they need. Like I said, what will be a pattern of about 3 naps will quickly drop to 2 naps in the first year of life. 2 naps may last until into the second year of life, but somewhere in the second year of life for almost all babies, it'll drop to just a single midday nap. And that final nap will last until, anywhere from age 4 to 5. And it should last that long. Don't give up on that nap too early. Make sure your kid's getting the naps that he or she needs for as long as they need them. The second thing is to honor an early bedtime, both before the naps disappear and after. Dr. Weisblut's window of an early bedtime in the first years of life, through infancy and toddlerhood, I'd say, 6 to 8 p.m. Closer to 6 in the beginning, drifting towards 8 as time goes on, falling back to 6 or 7 as you drop a nap, for example, but then, extending later to the night as the kid matures from there. As the kid gets older, you'll cross the 8 p.m. threshold, and what Weisblut says or recommends as an appropriate permanent early bedtime, I'd say for the first 5 to 10 years of a kid's life. I'm not sure that's exactly what he says for the first 10 years, but I don't think he would disagree with that. To keep an early bedtime of as early as 8:30 p.m. Doesn't have to be 8:30 p.m. if it doesn't work for your household, but stick to an early bedtime and watch your kid and see, respect his need for sleep, and see how late he's able to stay up and be alert and active, and then let him lead the way as far as letting the bedtime go later into the night. I would say one of the things that 8:30 has going for it, because we still have an 8:30 bedtime in our household for our 6.5-year-old son. Truth be told, we crossed that line now, but we still try to hold the line at 8:30, and it's helpful because by doing so, we ensure that this kid is in bed and down by 9, and I think that's a good time for young children, up to the age of 10, to go to bed, because at least up until that age or close to it, they're going to need something on the order of 10 hours of sleep. So if they go to bed at 9 p.m., they can sleep until 7 a.m. and get all the sleep they need before they got to get up and go to school or what have you, and before the world wakes up and the sun comes out and there's brighter lights and louder noises that could wake them up and interfere with their sleep. If it's not 9 o'clock, then I would just ask you to consider how much later you'd want to go. Again, depending on school and work schedules in your home. Um, but the first reason to honor an early bedtime is to ensure that a child gets all the sleep that they need. Again, something close to 10 hours up to and through the age of 10. I mean, adolescents and teenagers need 9 or more hours for the most part. So be sensitive to that and sensitive to your child's need for sleep at all ages. But the first reason is just to make sure the kid gets the sleep he needs. The second reason, in my opinion, for an early bedtime is because not all sleep hours are created equal. In other words, it's my belief, and I think it's the belief of many others, that the quality of sleep differs on when we go to sleep. We are diurnal creatures. We are not nocturnal creatures. So, for example, if you worked a graveyard shift and you slept 8 hours from 2 p.m. in the afternoon to 10 p.m., let's say, I think science has, the science strongly suggests that that is a different quality of sleep than someone that sleeps from, say, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. or 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. In fact, graveyard shifts, if I'm not mistaken, have been shown to be carcinogenic or cancer-causing to humans. So, we have evolved as a species to rise and rest with the sun, right? We rose with the sun always because it was a source of warmth and a source of light, frankly. We can see the world. And we wound down the day and went to bed when the sun set because it got dark and a little cooler or a lot cooler. In the olden days, you may have been able to, light an oil lantern or light a fire, but, that's the kind of light you had at night. It was still the kind of light that was conducive to, winding down the day and feeling drowsy and making ready for bed. We didn't have electronic devices and cell phones and, TVs in the bedroom, and, all the other, accoutrements of, modern life that have changed the way we live. I don't think for you and I, for example, sleeping 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is the same as going to bed at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning and sleeping until 10 a.m., even if you're sleeping the same number of hours. And I recall, when my son was young, he would get up, 6, 7 a.m. He would go down 6, 7 p.m. I wanted to go to the gym early in the morning and knock out a workout and be home at or before he woke up. So, I would wake up 5:30, and I would go to bed 9:30, 10, or, try to get to bed around 9, maybe be asleep 9:30 or no later than 10. And subjectively, I discerned a difference in the quality of my sleep. I had more spring in my step, and I felt like I was getting the best sleep of my life, or, better sleep when I kept those hours. And I think there's data to support that, but feel free to check it out for yourself. Remember that sleep time is the only time that your child will grow. So if you want your kid to be healthy, strong, and tall, you have to understand that sleep is the only time that will happen. It's the only time that their bone plates will lengthen. It's the only time that the pituitary gland will release human growth hormone to do that. And the growth hormone is released during deep sleep, approximately, an hour and a half to 2 hours after we fall asleep. And I think feel free to check this out. Some folks say that, it's like you get pulses of growth hormone, two pulses, I think, throughout the night. But the first biggest pulse or blast of growth hormone is in the early pre-midnight hours. So the first cycle of deep sleep. Um, uh, in any event, I think this is something that folks have understood for a long time, going back to the olden days. In fact, there's a book of nursery rhymes we have at home. It's called Mother Goose Treasury of Nursery Rhymes, that we've been reading and singing to our kid since he was a baby. And, there's one I came across, this short, pithy little nursery rhyme called Go to Bed Late. And the rhyme goes, go to bed late, stay very small. Go to bed early, grow very tall. Now, how did people know that, in the Middle Ages or the, Dark Ages or, the Renaissance, 500-600 years ago? I think it's because they could see the differences among households and children. People lived in close-knit communities. They lived on top of each other in these villages, and they were just closer to each other in general. And they knew each other's families, and they knew each other's children, and they could discern a difference in the households where the kids would go to bed early or on time and sleep better and longer, versus the households in which they didn't. There was wisdom in that nursery rhyme long before we had the science and understanding to back it up, because it's not a matter of dispute anymore, and it's not about a matter of nursery rhymes anymore. I mean, we understand this for a fact, and it's not just growing bones and growing tall. Sleep is when it's the only time in which there's real kind of cellular repair, muscular repair of other tissues that damaged throughout the day. Whatever healing needs to take place in the body and the mind, sleep is when it happens. So, respect your kids' need for sleep. Let them get deep, continuous sleep that is not interrupted or fragmented, broken up for extended periods of time, especially because, any one of us may stir in the middle of the night, but we're liable to fall right back asleep unless something keeps us up. So don't let that something be you, dad and mom. And, the third thing, respect naps, honor an early bedtime. Third thing is sleep train. For the love of God. Watch the video on sleep training so you can understand what to do at each stage in the first year. And if you sleep train in the first year, then you won't need to bother with it thereafter, because you already have all of that in place. But please do it, because if you don't, then you will interfere with your kids' natural ability to fall asleep and stay asleep and even put themselves back to sleep if something wakes them. And it's just because, again, of the way modern society is organized and the way we live our lives. They didn't have baby monitors in the olden days, and I think, I can imagine where a lot of times with baby cry in the middle of the night, you might not have even heard it if you're just passed out, exhausted from the toil and trials and tribulations of the day, working the farm or whatever people were doing. And even if they heard the babies cry, I think, it's just life was different for many people. I mean, I just think it's like, when it's a matter of survival, making sure the harvest is good, you have enough food to eat. I don't think folks necessarily catered or pandered to an infant's every cry or whim as much. And when there were night wakings, even if mom or dad heard them, maybe they wouldn't respond in time and the baby would stop crying on his own. Or maybe they just, learned to ignore it because they understood that nothing else was wrong and it was just a matter of night waking. Um, Something woke them up momentarily, but the best thing to do is just let them fall asleep. To be honest with you, when my son, even as an infant or as a toddler, first, second year of life, after the fourth trimester, I want to be clear, we're not talking about a newborn anymore, but, there were occasions where he was, we weren't sure if, he was sick or not. And I'm not telling you to not respond to your kid if he's sick. Um, but what I am telling you is that the very best thing for your child or you or me when we are sick is to go back to sleep. So if he's running a fever and you want to give him some infant Tylenol, fine, but put the baby down and let him get back to sleep and let him get the sleep that he or she needs. There's nothing else that you can do that is going to serve his body, his recovery better than letting them sleep. Um, I make a last point about sleep, which is that, sometimes I think we have a strange relationship to crying in babies because, we don't let babies cry sometimes when they clearly are tired and need to sleep, or we're afraid to let them cry to sleep. Um, and we even interrupt or interfere with their sleep ourselves out of that concern or anxiety. Uh, but then we overlook crying during the day, sometimes as a result of, fragmented or insufficient or inadequate sleep. We say, well, that's just how they are. That's just what babies do. And how often have you heard, for example, when it comes to daytime naps, people will say, well, oh, don't worry, they can sleep through anything. Usually when it's more convenient for us to say that than for the baby. And we say, no, they can sleep through anything. Or, better yet, they say, well, they got to learn to sleep through anything. As if any of us, who sleeps well through loud noises or bright lights? And when have we ever needed to get used to or be trained to sleep that way? And yet we'll do that to kids. And then when they're napping 20 to 30 minutes at a time, show me the kid that sleeps in the middle of the day with the windows and the blinds wide open, a lot of bright lights and loud sounds for an hour and a half nap, consistently getting recording naps of an hour and a half. Show me that infant, because what will happen is that they won't get those good naps. 20 to 30 minutes at a time is not enough. And then when they nap that way, we either, throw up our hands or wonder why, or just say, that's just how he naps. He's always been a short napper, and then, when we end up with babies and infants who spend more time crying, cranky, unhappy, or unfocused, we say, well, babies cry, and that's just what they do. So think about that, worry about your babies crying all the other times in life. But when it's time to sleep, let the kid go to sleep. Let him learn to fall asleep on his own. Let him learn through habit that nothing happens and there's nothing to worry about, that he can fall asleep and fall back asleep on his own. And it's the most natural thing in the world, the way human babies have done since for millennia. But oftentimes modern life is getting in the way. Let them go to sleep and, let them cry it out so that they can get the sleep that they need. I want to caution again that we're not talking about newborns in the first 2 to 3 months of life. But when you're past that and you're an experienced dad and you've gotten your sea legs, and you're more comfortable with your kid, and you understand him, and there's nothing else wrong except you're putting him down at bedtime, and he just wants you to play with him some more, and he's realized that if he keeps spitting out the pacifier, you're going to go back and put it back in his mouth, and we can play that game because he knows daddy will come back. Let him get the sleep he needs. Um, don't go back in the room and put the pacifier back in. That's what I did. And a kid cried for 10 minutes, and then he never cried again after that one single night. Every time when it was bedtime, he went to bed without any fussing or crying at all. And I went back into the room after he'd fallen asleep, and then I took the pacifier out. And we did daytime nap training too, as I discussed in the last video. A lot of crying and tears, but it was worth it, because after a week that was very difficult for us, we got good, solid, timely naps every single day thereafter for all intents and purposes. And as I said, it paid off. Love. Well, California's First Five California campaign is really what, it all gets to, because love obviously means to love your kid, emotionally, but, do what they say for First Five California. Talk, read, sing. Talk to your kid. Talk to him from day one, and talk to him all the time. Talk to him about everything. Talk to him long before he understands anything that you're saying. He's going to love hearing the sound of your voice and the warm tone that you use to talk to him with. He's going to love hearing anything you have to say. I mean, isn't it nice that, your baby will find everything you say to be incredibly interesting and exciting. And where else is he going to learn about anything and everything if not from you? He's going to learn the meanings of words from you. He's going to learn how to act and behave from you, from what you teach him, before he's even ready for, but you kind of just stream of consciousness, talk to him about whatever is on your mind and whatever you want to talk about. Read to your kid. We read to my son every single day of his life. In the beginning, it's a great activity because they have these board books for kids, right? Lots of colorful images, letters of the alphabet, sight words. You start with that. And then, look, we were reading Harry Potter long before he understood that level of writing or prose. But he understood some, he could listen to the sound of my voice. He maybe over time, he followed some of the story, learned more words and new words every day by doing that. And it's just a safe activity. You never have to worry about them getting hurt in any way. And you're preparing them for school in the process, teaching them things like character recognition, forming those neural connections in their brain. I suppose it depends on your reading level or your personal interest in reading, but read whatever you like to read. It doesn't have to be one thing or another. You don't want to, almost anything you like to read is probably okay to read, especially to a baby or an infant. But even older kids, use your own judgment. If you don't like to read, then ask yourself if maybe you can get a kick out of, reading to your baby, because, pick what you do like to read and see if you can have fun with it. Park them on your lap and enjoy it. Sing to your kid. I think that's it's a beautiful way of saying play with your kid. But, they learn through song and music a lot. We teach them the ABCs, through song. We teach them how to wash our hands through the Wash Our Hands. There's a song for that. And babies and kids and humans, love song and music. And it's just, you sing to them lullabies at night as part of your bedtime routine. Um, Sing to them no matter what. Sing to them even if you think your voice is terrible, I'd say. It's not. And you know what? Your kid is going to think it's the most beautiful thing. Your baby's going to love hearing the sound of your voice and your singing, even if you don't. Don't listen to anybody who, if there's people out there who think fathers uh, don't sing to their kids or for some weird reason shouldn't, or, hey, I don't see or hear of fathers singing to their kids. Piss on that. I mean, who cares about that? Who cares what some random person or stranger or anyone would think about that? Sing to your kid to your heart's content. Sing to him as much as you want. Kiss him as much as you want. Joke with him. Laugh. Play around with your kid. Try to slow down life and the world around you. And think about the importance of this time and these moments compared to everything else that we think is so important in life. For sure, kids don't care about any of that other stuff. All that's going to matter to him in his life is the time that you spend together. But you know what? Even for us, for many of us anyway, it'll turn out to be the best possible use of your time as well, for yourself. And love their mom too. I'm reminded of that John Wooden quote. John Wooden, the famous college basketball coach, who said the best thing a father can do for their children or his children is to love their mother. And there's a lot of truth to that. Do these things, Dad, and I almost want to promise you that you will not have to worry about developmental milestones or behavioral issues down the road. I can't make promises because, again, I don't know you and I don't know anything about your life, family, or circumstances. But I am telling you, you mind the fundamental issues and you'll have to worry about those kinds of developmental milestones and behavioral issues a lot less. We didn't even end up training potty training our son in the end because we didn't have to. He wore diapers until he was like 3 and change. Eventually it was those pull-up diapers, those big boy diapers, but he still wore them. And then he kind of just figured it out on his own because he would observe the rest of us going to the bathroom to go pee or poop. He wanted to be like daddy and mommy and grandpa and do things the way he saw his family doing them. Obviously, there was some coaching and instruction along the way. I'm not saying that we didn't talk to him about it, but there wasn't any potty training to speak of. There wasn't a week or a weekend or even a single day that we potty trained. He was able to kind of figure that out on his own, at least as far as the peeing. Obviously with pooping, you still need to go in there and wipe their butts. But just going to the bathroom and peeing, he did it on his own. I think that applies to, more than just the potty training. So, all your kid needs in the end, guys, is air, water, food, sleep, and love. Now, I can't control the air that my kid breathes. Obviously there's common sense stuff like don't smoke cigarettes in the house. I don't smoke cigarettes anyway, but, secondhand smoke isn't good. Of course, but in terms of air pollution or whatever, for the most part, I can't, I don't have much control over that. We have to rely on the government and God to hope and pray that the air we breathe is clean and isn't doing us harm. Water, I would say don't drink water out of plastic bottles. Plastics leach into the water. There used to be chemicals like BPA in plastic bottles that have since been banned, but there might be other chemicals that are still leaching in there. Definitely don't drink out of plastic bottles that have been left out in the sun or in the car on a hot day, but we stay away from that entirely. We drink out of stainless steel or glass or paper cups, but we never drink out of plastic. But, there too, as far as our drinking water, I don't know, there's only so much that I can do to control the quality of our drinking water. But I can control how much water my family, takes in. I can, influence whether we're getting enough water throughout the day to stay healthy. And I can control the foods we eat, and so can you. So we can control the foods we use to nourish our children's minds and bodies. We can absolutely control or influence how much sleep they get, and whether it's enough sleep that they need. We can make choices that affect the quantity and quality of their sleep. And we can absolutely control how much love we show them. So bon voyage, Dad. Welcome to the grand adventure of your life. I hope you enjoy it as much as anything, and I think you will. Take care and see you next time.